As noted earlier today, there was so much that happened at the event yesterday, and also so much follow-up that's taking place right now, even before the folks that were at the actual event have returned home to be able to really provide some details of what took place at the 1010. I have accumulated a bunch more parts of what I recall, what I saw, what I'm thinking, how I analyze it, and then also others who have popped in and made some statements as well. So let's take a look at a few more pieces of the puzzle, and there's going to be more. Believe me, this will be talked about for days, if not weeks. One thing that I've noticed a little bit of noise starting to pop up right now is this idea of the future is what really was what Elon was trying to do. He was putting it into a futuristic set. He was trying to say, look, every one of these vehicles look like the future. They are the future. This is where we're going. It's going to change everything. It's going to change all transportation eventually. And we're just way, way ahead of everybody else in moving towards that future. So to the extent that the stock market never gets that and never thinks that way, that would give you one more reason why you would be thinking that the stock would be down today. They should be thinking about that. They should be thinking about that future. I'm waiting for some of the more bullish analysts to come out with their kind of sense of what took place, and I'm guessing some of those folks are also traveling. Okay, let's start with the Cybercab in terms of some more stuff that came up today. Number one, it will not have any charge port. It will only charge using inductive charging. So that'll be very interesting. Makes total sense. We know they bought that inductive charging company, but there is an issue with regard to the inductive method, in that is you have to have these inductive pads or these inductive methods deployed. So when you're talking about the timing of the deployment, you're saying, well, only California and Texas. Well, it might be that that's really as far as you can go next year with these inductive chargers. Now, again, they're not talking about having, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself a little, because they're not talking about having the cyber cabs until the next year, until 2026. And so that would also be part of the reason why maybe it's going to be 2026 before the cyber cabs themselves are deployed, is you gotta get a lot of these things out to these charging stations, or wherever the cabs are going to charge. It's a very, very big deal to get this done. So anyway, that's one thing of great interest, I think. Number two, Tesla showed automated cleaning. You may have, if you were watching the video, you saw it. It was only briefly on there, but I went back and looked at it a few more times and took a look at some other people's comments about it. So what it was basically doing is using very strong vacuums to vacuum the floors, the seats, and then to vacuum up any bottles that might be in the bottle holders, and then using a nice fluffy dusting machine, a dusting thing, to dust the dash and anything else that might need dusting. Now that will take care of, I guess, most of the things that you'd be concerned about if you needed to frequently do the interior. So that was interesting. We heard a little bit about that a few weeks ago, so it wasn't completely new. Number three, AJ and others are pointing out that the Cybercab rather, has a very, very large trunk. No frunk, apparently, but a very large trunk. And then it has hinges on it that allow it to open really super wide. And this will be great for luggage, but many people are saying that this might also allow it to serve as a mini pickup, and it'd be fantastic for deliveries of all kinds, food deliveries, etc., etc. Now, there's also a barrier, a walled-off section between the cabin and the trunk. This will help if you're traveling with hot foods or smelly foods. It'll help a little bit to cut that down in the cabin. But also the barrier or wall will make the cabin that much better in terms of acoustics, in terms of exterior noises. So it'll be quiet as well as allow for a good listening experience. Now, there's also, I didn't note it right away, something I've been talking about, that, the experience inside the vehicle, well, you would want, as part of that experience, to have even a larger screen than you have right now in most tests I guess, well, I think it's a Cybertruck a little larger anyway, but even a larger screen. So a big screen, and apparently the prototype did have a large screen. Then number 5, there are no side mirrors, but that's, pretty much a given. And they're thinking that later on, people will be taking off the side mirrors on some of the other vehicles. Excuse me, seem to have a very bad frog. And then the rear wheels are 21-inch and the front wheels are 18-inch. So that was interesting. Not sure what that's all about. Nobody was giving any recommendations in terms of whether there was an aerodynamic advantage or whether there was, sometimes different weights. I know being in the bicycle business, we have a situation where the rear wheel gets all the work. You're way more likely to get a flat in the rear wheel, et cetera, because the weight is all there. Now, maybe there's weight distribution issues that cause this to be useful, or maybe an aerodynamic benefit. Rains answer a question about remote operation of Waymo. So we've been talking about remote operation of the Tesla. Will there be remote operations? And he says that Waymo tells us exactly what they're doing. So we've been speculating on this channel. I've been like, well, this is what we think Waymo might be doing. Even some of my experts have not known Waymo's what they're doing. Well, it turns out it's right on their website. So a fleet response agent has a suite of, that's what they call it, a fleet response agent, has a suite of tools to help them understand what a Waymo vehicle encounters on the road. For instance, fleet response can view real-time feeds from the vehicle's exterior cameras and a 3D graphical representation of what the car perceives around it. They can then rewind available feeds if necessary to look at the immediate, to see what's going on in that immediate scene better. So very similar to what we can do as owners of a Tesla. We can see what's going on now with our feed. We can also see what just took place. But now the remote operator would have that same opportunity if the car was in some kind of trouble, some kind of difficulty. The fleet response and the Waymo driver primarily communicate through questions and answers. For example, suppose a Waymo AV approaches a construction site with an atypical cone configuration, indicating a lane shift or close. In that case, the Waymo driver, the Waymo passenger, I guess you would say, might contact a fleet response agent to confirm which lane the cones intend to close. What are the cones trying to tell us? And then the remote operator could give guidance. An illustrative view of the guidance could be one response, showing it how to navigate. Traditionally, the Waymo driver doesn't traverse private driveways, it says. Fleet response provides the Waymo driver guidance to make even more room to efficiently clear the street and make way for the truck. I don't even understand what they just said. I don't know why I even read it. Okay. In the most ambiguous situations, the Waymo driver, I guess the remote driver, takes the lead, initiating requests through fleet response to optimize the driving path. Fleet responses can influence the Waymo driver's path, whether indirectly through indicating lane closures, explicitly requesting the AV use a particular lane, or in the most complex scenarios, explicitly proposing a path for the vehicle to consider. The Waymo driver, thinking remote driver, evaluates the input from fleet response and independently remains in control of driving. This collaboration enhances the rider experience by efficiently guiding them to their destination. The Waymo driver prioritizes the safest course of action at a given moment. In some situations, even with inputs from fleet response, the Waymo driver may come to a stop if it determines that it's the safest course of action. Once the car comes to a stop, it can autonomously resume operations, and in other instances may require additional support from Waymo roadside assistance, so you may have to send the cavalry. As the Waymo driver improves over time, it can solve more ambiguous scenarios independently, needs less help. But as with the rest of our operations, a helpful human is no more than a touch of a button away. I feel a little foolish, personally, not having checked this. It's almost exactly what I've said for months about what I think Tesla will do when they go from having a supervised driver to a supervised situation to an unsupervised situation, that there could, if there is a remote driver someplace. Maybe they're handling 5 cars. Maybe they're handling 10 cars. Maybe they're handling 100 cars if there's not that many situations it needs to be involved in. But I believe that the car itself will be the one that notifies this remote driver, hey, there's a situation that we don't know what to do with. Now, it may remotely initially go to the mainframe of the computer and only takes fractions of a second. And the mainframe of the computer may know a better answer before it goes over to the remote driver. All of that happening fairly instantaneously. That's my theory anyway. Well, speaking of semi-autonomous, there's a huge amount of chatter today about the teleoperation of the Optimi at the event. This is both in regards to the event, but also some of the most of the bots possibly being under the control of a remote operator. So at the event, were there remote operators on all or most of these different Optimi that were there during that time? And the overall general impression is yes, there were remote operators. Now, one of the things that came up out of that in the chat on X is, oh, well, maybe that's not such a bad thing. For instance, let me just start with heart surgeons, for instance, they can actually do a remote surgery on a heart patient. They place a robot on the chest of the patient. There's doctors there that maybe can do part of the work, but then they bring in the expert, can be half a planet away, can come in there and can actually remotely move the tools on that robot in order to complete the job. Well, you can imagine you could have that same situation with remote teleoperators of all kinds of robots, humanoid robots that might be in inclement climates, places where humans can't go, just really bad climates, or really dangerous circumstances and situations. Take the human out of that situation, but have a human teleoperating somebody up there washing windows on the 75th floor. Anyway, there's all kinds of possibilities there. So do I think that that's the future? No, I don't think that's the future. But there are some potential benefits there if there is, again, a transitionary time when there be some remote operations and some automatic operations. Okay, let's go back to the timing of the Cybercab production. It just seems so far out that one of the other thoughts I had is maybe they just don't want to invest in the production until other aspects like getting certificates, getting approvals from regulatory agencies. Maybe they're going to build 20 or 50 or whatever, send them out, prove that they can do what they're supposed to do, get regulatory approval, and then begin production. So I don't know. You always got to figure out where you want to put your money, because it's not unlimited. Even with Tesla having 30 billion in the bank, they're spending 10 billion a year just on those huge, massive data centers. So yeah, you might be limiting how much of the expense you want to go to actually get everything ready for production until you're really feeling like this is the time that you want to start shipping. So am I disappointed? I thought that Cybercabs would start shipping third quarter of next year. Now they're talking about 26 and maybe even 27. Yep, that's disappointing. But as long as we can get Model 3s and Model Ys out there starting to bring in revenues, that will be the game changer. That's the one we're all waiting for. And by the way, Tesla is still being punished to the point of still $20. How does the market actually do that? Isn't it interesting how, it kind of went down $20 and yeah, it's been around it all day. But at the end of, hours and hours later, that's what the buyers and the sellers and the people that I know, lots of people that are buying right now, lots of people on X, yeah, I'm in, I'm buying lots of stock, but there's a bunch of other people that are saying, well, this scared me off and I'm out. So interesting. We knew it would be. It's always going to be interesting. Listen, I'll be back later, probably with Larry. Larry's on his way to Texas. Larry's on his way to watch that flight, hopefully Sunday. is when that starship is going to take off and maybe land with the chopsticks catching it. That's going to be absolutely amazing. I wish I was going. So Larry is kind of on the road, and he said, "Hey, Randy, can we be kind of flexible?" And I said, "No, I can't, because my daughter's getting married tonight and I have to leave at a certain point." So maybe Larry will be in on the Friday night conversation, and maybe he won't. Maybe we'll have to try to catch him later in the weekend. All right, that's all I got for you right now. It's been great talking to you.